Hello, sixth grade. Today we're going to focus on another skill that has many benefits: how to use assertive communication to talk about our feelings, needs, wants, and opinions. When we use assertive communication, we speak in a confident way. We're open and honest about what we're saying. Sometimes we're asking for what we want or telling someone what we feel or believe. Sometimes we're standing up for our rights. We're always respectful of other people's feelings and rights. So I'm going to give an example of assertive communication. Imagine that my older son, Drew, is watching TV and my younger daughter, Maisie, is trying to study or do schoolwork. My son has the television turned up very loud, and it's extremely distracting to her and making it difficult for her to concentrate. So what she would do to address him is she'd stand an appropriate distance from him, smile, make eye contact, and in a friendly voice say something like, "I really need to study or do my schoolwork, and the television is distracting me. Would you please turn the volume down?" If Drew were to say yes, smile, if he were to say yes and do it, then just smile and thank him. If he were to say no, which being brother, sister, and probably in our house is what would happen, then she could repeat the assertive, she could say, "I really need to study and the television is distracting me. Could you go to another room and watch it?" Depending on his response, if he were to say no, then she could also say, "How about you watch it for 10 more minutes and then turn it down or go to another room, maybe finish the episode if it's a show." So trying to find a way to work it out with him. So some things that are important to remember when talking assertively is that you're going to speak in a friendly way, smiling, making eye contact, and asking clearly and directly what you want to happen. So using assertive communication, as I tried to demonstrate for you, is a way to get the best outcome out of many types of situations. Two other ways to speak that aren't so helpful are passive communication and aggressive communication. So pretend that I had spoken really quietly, not looking at the person, and acted scared, like I thought I didn't have a right to ask for the volume to be turned down. What do you think would happen? Well, the person might not have heard the request or might not have decided to turn the volume down. The person might have turned down the television, but he or she might think something was wrong or might wonder why you were acting that way. With passive communication, people speak too quietly, hesitate, and might not look the other person in the eye. When people act passively, they go along with what other people say, even if their own feelings are different. They might feel that the other person is better than they are. It's like they're saying, "You're okay, but I'm not." When we act passively, we're not sticking up for our own rights. Then it's easier for other people to treat us in ways we don't like, such as bullying. So now pretend that I had made a demand, glared at the person, yelled, or even turned the television off myself. Now, going back to my example, this may have been what had happened in real life in my situation. But if that would have happened, what do you think the results would have been? Do you think they would have agreed? Probably not. Drew probably would have gotten upset or tried to turn the television back on. Probably a fight would have started. People who speak aggressively may talk too loudly or yell and interrupt other people, give nasty looks, or use rude gestures. They seem to care more about themselves than anyone else. It's as if they're saying, "I'm okay, but you're not," or "I'm better than you are." Bullying is an example of aggressive behavior. It may seem like a quick way to get what you want, but you'll probably end up with no close friends, and you'll get used to dealing with problems in unhealthy ways. This will cause bigger problems as you grow up. The assertive style of communicating that I demonstrated in my example earlier is a healthy place between the two extremes of being passive or aggressive. When people act in assertive ways, they recognize their own feelings and needs, but also respect those of other people. They treat themselves and others with fairness and kindness and respect. Their assertive behaviors say, I'm okay and you're okay too. You can think of these behaviors as they were on a line, with passive behavior on one end and aggressive behavior on the other, similar to this slide. And assertive behavior right in the middle. Your best choice is to be in the middle of that line. So wherever we are on the line, part of how we communicate is through our body language. Who can tell us what body language is? Well, right, it's the way we sit or stand, move, gesture, and use your voice when you're talking. People may notice our body language before we even begin speaking. Of course, what we say is also important. When the message of our body matches our words, our spoken message is more powerful. It makes our communication even more clear. First, let's talk about some situations where assertive communication is helpful. So here are some examples of when to speak with respect for yourself and others. Asking politely for what you want. Thanking others for what you appreciate. Speaking up when someone or something bothers you. And saying no to negative pressure. I bet you have had many chances to ask politely for what you want. We practiced how to share appreciation in our last 2 lessons. Let's talk a little more about the other 2 times to use assertive communication. When we feel bothered, we might act passively and try to pretend it never happened. But we might continue to feel bad and the problem won't get resolved. Or we might get aggressive and say or do things we later wish we hadn't. What do you think might be a better way to handle situations when we feel bothered? Right. Stay in the middle of the line of behaviors. Use assertive communication instead of passive or aggressive. You can use Imessages to help you speak assertively when bothered or upset. Imessages help you keep such conversations respectful and honest. It helps to first calm down if you have strong feelings. I think that's one of the most important things, is to take a minute or 2 and calm down. This is even something I need to remind myself of. When you have those strong feelings, you first need to calm yourself before you can continue on this way. So when you use Imessages, you start your sentence with I and talk about how you felt and what you would like, rather than starting sentences with you and saying mean things. It can be helpful when you use Imessages to talk with the person about these 3 things. How you feel about the situation, what the person did that upset you, what you want him or her to do instead. You might use the pattern like this to begin. I feel angry when you turn the volume up so loud. Please turn it down so I can continue working. Think about a time when someone did something you didn't like. Think about how you felt, what happened, and what you wanted the person to do instead. Then think about how you could have talked to the person with an I message. So let's move on to another time when it's good to speak with respect for yourself and others. You can use assertive body language and speech to refuse to go along with what you believe is wrong, such as bullying, hurting people or their belongings, stealing, drinking, or doing drugs. You can say no clearly and directly, and then suggest another activity. You might need to say it a few times if the other person keeps pressuring you. and then walk away calmly. Assertiveness is like many other skills. You will develop it throughout your life, getting more confident with it as you practice more. You might find that it's harder to be assertive in some situations than in others, but if you keep practicing, you will improve your skills. Being assertive doesn't mean you will always get what you want, but you will benefit from feeling better about yourself and creating more positive friendships. So your homework assignment is to choose one of these situations below and respond assertively, sharing your response on Flipgrid. So you can either choose situation 1 or situation 2. Situation 1, someone tells a mean lie about your best friend and asks you to agree. How would you use assertive communication to respond to that? Situation 2, someone borrowed your video game or another item that's important to you and returned it with a big scratch on it. I think maybe you loaned a sweatshirt, your favorite sweatshirt, to a friend, and they returned it with a big stain on it. How would you use assertive communication to respond to your friend? So choose a situation and share that and respond to it and share that response with me on Flipgrid. I look forward to hearing your responses. Sometimes when we're talking with or listening to people, we might have strong feelings that make it harder for us to act with respect. In our next health lesson next week, we will talk about some ways we can handle strong feelings. This will help us in many situations, including when we need to calm down in order to listen better or talk respectfully with someone.